Lots of Americans like me have German roots, but how much do we really know about what our German ancestors experienced when they first came to the US? How German heritage helped shape America, a journey through influence, identity, and untold stories. What impact did an influx of Germans have on the development of the United States? And what does this all have to do with Donald Trump? So we're in New York City. Believe it or not, in the mid-19th century, this used to be the third biggest German-speaking hub in the world, after Berlin and Vienna. And you can still catch pieces of German life that somehow never totally disappeared.
So my mom's favorite word is Überraschung. I feel like Schadenfreude is really funny because you can't really translate it, like, haha, he fell down, I'm laughing and it's funny.
New York has always been this place where people come chasing the American dream, one of the main gateways into America. Now, the Germans weren't the first Europeans to spread across America. They started arriving here as early as 1608. For more than 3 centuries, their numbers exploded to actually become the biggest immigrant group at the time. And get this, by 2026, more than 7 million Germans have moved here. In the 18th century, there was a huge wave of immigrants to the New World, and that included thousands of Germans. Most of these people were running from really tough situations back home. Poverty, religious persecution, political chaos, you name it. Between about 1750 and World War I, over 5 million Germans packed up their lives and crossed the Atlantic Ocean. To them, America wasn't just a place, it was a promised land. The journey itself was no joke. Worst case, you're stuck on a ship for 3 months, packed shoulder to shoulder with all the others, everyone catching that first glimpse of the Statue of Liberty and thinking, we made it. Most were processed at Castle Garden, America's first official immigration processing center, before everything later moved to Ellis Island. And here's the wild part. All of this was happening despite people like Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers, mind you, expressing a clear preference of who to let in and who to not. Who's on the $100 bill anyway? Oh, right, Benjamin Franklin. I obviously knew that. Well, it turns out he didn't want Germans to come to America at all. In his observations concerning the increase of mankind, he wrote back in 1751. And in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, and Swedes are generally what we call a swarthy complexion, as are the Germans also. The Saxons only excepted, who with the English make the principal body of white people on the face of the earth. I could wish their numbers were increased. Franklin feared that German immigrants would not assimilate into English-speaking colonial society, creating cultural and linguistic divisions. However, they kept coming, and German immigrants ended up shaping the US, its culture, its communities, even its politics. Like other European nations, the Germans didn't just bring themselves, they brought their whole way of life with them. Their language and customs slowly wove themselves into American life. I mean, we all know words like kindergarten, Autobahn, Tannenbaum, and let's be real, who hasn't had a bratwurst? A pretzel, sauerkraut, and deutsches Bier. Germans didn't just settle, they built. They played a massive role in developing agriculture across the Midwest, the so-called German Belt, and down in parts of Texas too. They pushed industrial growth, kicked off businesses, and even helped create labor unions. They basically shaped the backbone of the US economy. These folks worked hard. You know that saying, no pain, no gain? Well, the Germans had their own version. Ohne Fleiß, kein Preis. No effort, no reward. And get this, even the whole idea of structured education and hands-on technical training, you guessed it, that came from the Germans too. They helped shape the way Americans learned practical skills, which totally changed the game for education here. When political refugees fled after losing the revolution of 1848 in Germany and across Europe, a lot of them ended up in America, bringing fresh ideas with them. These were people who believed in freedom, democracy, and progress. Some of those liberal ideas, like opposing slavery and preserving a union, even motivated Germans to fight in the American Civil War from 1861 to 1865. So their democratic beliefs made their way right into American society. Core American freedoms like free speech, free press, and free religion really mattered to them. They used those rights to build close-knit communities, often centered around where they came from back in Germany. In the mid-19th century, most Germans sided with the Republican Party. And that little detail connects us to something pretty interesting. President Trump and his own bit of Germanness. But hold that thought, we'll get to that in just a minute. You've heard of Chinatown, and you've heard of Little Italy, but did you know that New York used to have a Little Germany? By the 19th century, a German neighborhood emerged here in New York's Lower East Side. It was a place of German life, German culture, and eventually tragedy. We'll talk about some of the tougher, more tragic moments a bit later, but first let's zoom in on one of the coolest chapters of Little Germany, aka Klein Deutschland. The once thriving neighborhood was buzzing with life, especially around Avenue B, which people even nicknamed German Broadway. German immigrants in the US loved staying connected, not just with each other here, but all the way back to their home regions in Germany. They built entire little worlds of their own, running beer halls, theaters, shops, restaurants, and even their own groceries. They had German-language schools, libraries, sports clubs, choirs, and churches. Basically, if three Germans meet, they form a club or Verein. Oh, and they even had their very own newspaper, like the New Yorker Stadtzeitung, one of over 800 German papers in the whole nation at some point.
This was Germantown. Nobody spoke English. Everybody spoke German. It was a common language to meet. As I say, it was not English here. And people walked around in dirndls and lederhosen,
Really?
spoke German. And you couldn't get from here to First Avenue without speaking German. All the businesses, all the establishments, all the stores and the merchandise, everything was German.
The Germans in Klein Deutschland were seriously skilled. We're talking bakers, carpenters, butchers, builders, even officers. Their community held tight to those old-school German traditions and that strong work ethic they were famous for. Their motto kind of says it all. Wer rastet, der rostet. Basically, if you rest, you rust. The ultimate example of German discipline and drill was Baron Friedrich Wilhelm von Steuben, who had fought in the Prussian army during the 7 Years' War from 1756 to 1763. Struggling after the war, he saw the American Revolution as a chance to revive his career.
Take, ready.
So he took a scrappy Continental Army and whipped it into shape during the Revolutionary War, fighting right alongside George Washington from 1778 to 1783 to help America break free from Great Britain. Washington went on to become the nation's first president, whereas history kind of forgot about von Steuben.
You have to understand, George Washington just had volunteers. There was no organization, sanitation, and most of them wore homespun clothing and maybe didn't have shoes, and they were his army. And when Steuben came here, he was a quartermaster, and he organized everything. He said, you have your camps, you have your outhouses up there, you don't have everything together, just for example. And then he instigated uniform, and then he fought in the battles. I mean, because of him, we really won the Revolutionary War. And of course, nobody stipulates that today because he was German. But without him, we would all be British today, and I say that with great sincerity.
These days, von Steuben does get historically recognized with an annual celebration in his name, the Steuben, or as some say, Stuben Parade. After the Revolutionary War, von Steuben became a US citizen and, chronically broke but supported by the government, never returned to Europe. But everything changed for Little Germany in 1904. Tragedy struck when the General Slocum excursion steamboat caught fire on New York City's East River, killing more than 1,000 German-American churchgoers, most of them women and children. The disaster completely shattered the community. Grief, depression, even suicides followed. And slowly, people began to leave what was once a lively, close-knit neighborhood. After that, German-American life didn't just disappear in New York, it shifted. Yorkville on the Upper East Side became the new Little Germany through much of the 20th century. It was like a living kaleidoscope of German culture, a place where people from all across Germany's different regions came together, blending their traditions into one vibrant community.
This building where it says the Commons, that's the only standing structure. That was the Deutsche Theater, and that was a vaudeville theater here.
Everything in German.
Oh yeah, no, everything here was German. Oh yeah. This was all short, small buildings. It's sad to see it all go.
Today, there isn't much left of that old German glory. Little pockets still exist, like the famous German butcher Schaller und Weber. But even places like that feel more American now, with hardly any German customers left. Kathy's been working tirelessly to preserve what's left of this fading German-American story, a story that honestly could have played an even bigger role in shaping history.
Did you know Americans once wanted to talk like this? Und es mag am deutschen Wesen einmal noch die Welt genesen. That was German, or at least my attempt at it, and it was once competing with English for the official language of the United States.
The Muhlenberg legend claims that Frederick Muhlenberg, the first Speaker of the House of Representatives in the late 18th century, cast the deciding vote against making German the official language of the US. Not true, and in reality the country still doesn't actually have an official language, but the idea stuck around.
German was supposed to become, if the Kaiser had had his way, the main language in this country, but then for reasons which I don't want to go into, which have to do also with German aggressiveness before 1914 and also the First World War, English became the main language.
He doesn't speak any German. In fact, President Trump denied his German roots. And then embraced them again, at least a little. So what's the real story here? We'll find out in just a moment. When you think of an undisputed symbol of German heritage in America, one name instantly comes to mind: Steinway and Sons. Their instruments didn't just make music, they built a legacy. And it's not just any piano. Some of the biggest names in music have played on a Steinway, from the legendary Van Cliburn to Sergei Rachmaninoff, Lang Lang, Diana Krall, and even Billy Joel. Yeah, that's the level of prestige we're talking about.
95% plus of concertizing pianists choose to play on a Steinway piano when they perform. The creation of the instrument is one of the legacies of the Steinway family. The second is working with artists and working with the very best pianists around the world and enabling them to best perform their artistry and to become the best pianists that they can be. And so that's been part of the company since the very beginning.
Steinway's musical brilliance all traces back to one man, Heinrich Engelhard Steinweg, a German immigrant from the Duchy of Brunswick who landed in New York in 1850. His insane woodworking skills and attention to detail turned his craft into pure art, and eventually into one of the most respected names in music history. Steinway led the industry with around 139 patents, including the overstrung scale and the cast iron frame. The trick was to show it all off in their own premier concert venue, Steinway Hall, right here in New York. And Steinway wasn't alone. There were plenty of other German-American success stories, like John Jacob Astor from Waldorf, who went on to found the American Fur Company and became one of the wealthiest men of his time. Or take Jewish German Levi Strauss from Bavaria, the guy who gave the world denim. His jeans didn't just become popular, they turned into a full-on symbol of American culture. Even the skies have a German connection. William Edward Boeing, the aerospace pioneer himself, was the son of a man from Hohenlimburg, a district of the German city of Hagen. And let's not forget Adolphus Busch, co-founder of Anheuser-Busch. His beer pretty much became a global icon, and he came from Mainz, Germany. And the list of German-American success stories just keeps going. But in all this glory, there's a German saying that still rings true. Wo Licht ist, ist auch Schatten, or in English, every light has its shadows. It's a reminder of the darker chapters of history, the devastation and destruction that Germany brought upon the world during the first half of the 20th century.
Of course, both world wars damaged the relationship between Germans and Americans, with a lot of people here becoming suspicious or even mistrustful of those with German roots, which led to a lot of them actually denying their origins altogether.
When the US entered the wars against Germany in 1917 and again in 1941, anti-German sentiment spread across the US. Everything that had once connected the two cultures, the music, education, craftsmanship, and shared values was wiped out by Germany starting world wars, costing Germany its once positive image in America.
The First World War wrecked a lot of that, and it was unleashed, of course, by the Germans. So, of course, in the interwar period, you had these constant debates about German responsibility for the First World War. And then, of course, Hitler definitely also started the Second World War and wrecked it again. And after 1945, it took a long time, at least for an older generation in this country, veterans, to reconcile to the fact that Germany was still reintegrated to the community of nations that they had left and tried to destroy in the Second World War.
At the time, it went beyond just attitudes. It hit everyday life. Even sauerkraut got rebranded as Liberty Cabbage. German language classes were dropped from schools, books vanished from libraries, street names were changed, and German-owned businesses faced boycotts. It was like an entire culture being erased in real time. American Prohibition from 1920 to 1933 put an end to German beer brewing, German social life, and German Gemütlichkeit, or coziness. Even though more krauts, as they were often called disrespectfully back then, kept coming to America, most began to distance themselves from their own heritage, just to blend in and stay safe.
A lot of these Germans came to America to get away from it all, to politics and everything, and then they had their children. Their children were born here, their children were Americans, but 1/3 of the American army were German descent, you see. So it was very difficult for Germans living here at that time because they were, ostracized because they were German, yet they became Americans and their children were American, but they somehow were blamed for it as well.
Based sometimes on loose affiliations, suspected Nazi sympathizers were sent to internment camps across the country, often used as cheap labor, a chapter of American history that rarely gets talked about. World War II, the Holocaust, and its horrors sped up the decline of anything seen as German in America. The images and stories coming out of Europe were just too shocking. After the war, the US was taking in German resources like coal, steel, and other goods by way of reparations. And most importantly, some of Germany's brightest minds, the kind of human capital that would go on to shape post-war America.
Like Werner von Braun, who was forgiven his associations with Nazism and was among the people who developed long-range rockets in this country. So you can see it's really a very complicated relationship.
During World War II, Werner von Braun developed the world's first long-range ballistic missile, a weapon used in war crimes against Allied cities. While he claimed his focus was engineering, historical evidence shows von Braun knew about the use of slave labor in concentration camps. More than 20,000 prisoners died producing these weapons, which destroyed parts of European cities like Brussels and London. Within months after the war, the former SS member became the chief architect of the Saturn V rocket, the one that launched America's Apollo missions to the moon. And he wasn't alone. Under Operation Paperclip, the US brought over 1,600 German scientists and engineers, many with strong Nazi ties, to help push the US to the forefront of technology. He hailed Apollo as one of history's greatest feats. 50 years later, during his first term in office, you guessed it, Donald J. Trump. We're getting to him very, very soon, I swear. The trauma of 2 world wars, especially the second one, left deep scars. Yet this suffering cannot erase the fact that Nazi Germany was the aggressor. Being villain and victim for many Germans created a kind of cultural insecurity that Americans actually have a name for. German angst.
But today, lots of German Americans are reconnecting with their heritage, whether it's through parades and celebrations, or here at the Goethe Institute, where they can actually learn and interact with the German language.
While anything German might still feel less visible in everyday America than it once did, lately a somewhat more open American interest in German culture and connection is being sparked. Yes, it's true, German language learning is on the decline in the US, part of a bigger trend affecting a lot of European languages. But students seem to again get more excited about the opportunity to expand past the United States.
I might want to live in Germany because it's a lot better there.
Why do you think that?
Because it's much nicer, it's much cleaner.
I feel like they often have stereotypes. Like in Germany too, they also have stereotypes about the US. But I feel like it's important because when you can connect with different cultures, you can also you can also help them learn, oh, it's not the same everywhere, right? There are different things.
Time to shift gear and find out about those stereotypes. Let's dive into the world-famous Oktoberfest. Not the one in Munich, but its stateside celebration right in the heart of Brooklyn, New York City. What do people in the US now associate with Germany, and where might the relationship between the two countries be headed next?
There were so many German immigrants to this city like 100 years ago, and you don't see as many like German restaurants or just like kind of sites of German culture or heritage. So I think something like this is so cool. I think that Germans are also really great at, talking about their history as well. They're really open people in that regard, and they're really honest.
Everybody's German today.
The obligatory Maßkrugstemmen, a stein-holding contest where participants test their strength and stamina by keeping a full beer mug raised for as long as possible. It's always a tight German-style finish, this time around with a cheerful American champion lifting his mug in victory.
So I didn't win any contests, but I've certainly got the vibe here. It's a lot of fun, even some of the things I haven't seen in Germany, but in any case, the coziness definitely reminds me of back home in Germany, so it's been a lot of fun.
And now finally, here's the German background story of America's 47th president, Donald J. Trump. We're in Karlstadt, a small village which sits along the German wine road in the Palatinate region, which used to be part of the Kingdom of Bavaria. Fred Trump, Donald Trump's father, was the son of Friedrich Trump and Elizabeth Christ, both born in Karlstadt. Friedrich was actually born a Trumpf with an F, the original German word for Trump. This was their home. The original family name appears in various forms in the archives of Karlstadt: Drum, Drom, Tromb, Tromp, Trum, Trumpf, and Drumpf. But that's not the end of the story.
The grandfather of Donald Trump, the current president, came to this country, joined the gold rush, but somehow he didn't quite like it. He went back to Germany. And they spoke German actually at the time, so they were quite German influenced. But then Frederick Trump had problems because he had skipped the universal draft in Hesse, where they were and where they lived, and all of a sudden he was no longer welcome, and they came back to this country and stayed forever.
According to the latest US Census, around 41 million Americans, or 12% of the population, trace their ancestry back to Germany. The bottom line, it's complicated between the United States and Germany. Two nations that seem to fall in and out of love with each other over the course of history. Still, their people hold common goals and values rooted in a shared past.
The history of German-American relations is definitely a story of change, loss, and rediscovery, but it's left us with some lasting impacts on the culture that don't seem to be going anywhere.